Number 1. It began in summer under perfect skies on the road to oil, the 23rd of August, 1942. The German Sixth Army reached the Volga River and began the attack on Stalingrad, a city of 400,000 people that would become a graveyard for nearly 2 million soldiers and civilians. Number 2. Stalingrad was originally called Tsaritsyn. In 1925, it was renamed to honor Joseph Stalin, who had defended the city during the Russian Civil War. The name made it a symbolic target. Hitler wanted it. Stalin would rather destroy it than lose it. Number 3. The battle lasted 200 days from the 23rd of August 1942 to the 2nd of February 1943. At its peak, the average life expectancy of a Soviet soldier arriving in Stalingrad was 24 hours. For officers, it was 3 days. Number 4. Germany's strategic goal was not Stalingrad itself. Operation Blue aimed to capture the Caucasus oil fields. Stalingrad controlled the Volga River, the supply route for that oil. The city was supposed to be a quick objective. It became an obsession. Number 5. The German Sixth Army, commanded by General Friedrich Paulus, numbered 330,000 men at the start of the battle. It was supported by Italian, Romanian and Hungarian divisions, totaling another 250,000 troops. This was one of the largest armies Germany had ever fielded. Number 6. On the 23rd of August 1942, the Luftwaffe launched over 1,000 bomber sorties against Stalingrad in a single day. The city burned. Wooden buildings ignited in minutes. Oil storage tanks exploded, spreading flames across entire districts. Over 40,000 civilians died in the first week. Number 7. The Volga River became a highway of terror. Soviet ferries transported reinforcements across under constant German artillery and air attack. Boats were sunk before reaching shore. Soldiers drowned in full gear. Bodies floated downstream for weeks. The river turned red in places where entire units were killed on the water. Number 8. Soviet General Vasily Zaytsev was given command of the 62nd Army defending Stalingrad on the 12th of September 1942. His headquarters was located in a bunker on the Volga River bank, within 300 yards of German positions. He stayed there for the entire battle, refusing to retreat. Number 9. Zaytsev's defensive doctrine was simple: hug the enemy. Soviet troops stayed as close to German lines as possible, sometimes within grenade, throwing distance so German artillery and aircraft couldn't fire without hitting their own men. Number 10. Stalin issued Order Number 227 on the 28th of July 1942. Not one step back. Retreat without orders was punishable by execution. Blocking detachments, called barrier troops, were positioned behind frontline units with orders to shoot anyone who ran. Thousands of Soviet soldiers were executed by their own side. Number 11. The NKVD, Stalin's secret police, operated penal battalions in Stalingrad. Soldiers convicted of cowardice or political crimes were sent to these units for redemption through blood. They were given the most suicidal missions, clearing minefields by walking through them, leading frontal assaults without weapons, drawing enemy fire to reveal positions. Number 12. German forces initially advanced through Stalingrad at a rate of several blocks per day. By October, they were measuring progress in meters. A single building could change hands 15 times in a single day. The Red October factory was captured and recaptured so many times that soldiers lost count. Number 13. The city stretched 30 miles along the Volga but was only 2 to 5 miles deep. By November, the Soviets controlled a strip of land along the river, averaging just 200 yards wide in some places. German artillery could hit any point in Soviet-held territory. There was no rear area, no safe zone, nowhere to rest. Number 14. Pavlov's house was a 4-story apartment building defended by Sergeant Yakov Pavlov and 24 men for 58 days. They fortified it with barbed wire, mines, machine gun nests and anti-tank rifles. German forces attacked it repeatedly and never took it. Soviet propaganda claimed more Germans died attacking Pavlov's house than died taking Paris. Number 15. The propaganda claim was false, but the building's defense was real. Pavlov's garrison suffered only 3 casualties during the entire siege. They survived by using the basement as a shelter, connecting to Soviet lines through trenches and rotating positions constantly. Pavlov survived the war and became a hero of the Soviet Union. Number 16. The fighting was so close that soldiers could hear enemy conversations through walls. German and Soviet soldiers fought in the same building, sometimes on different floors of the same room, separated only by a collapsed ceiling. Number 17. Stalingrad's factories continued, producing weapons even as battles raged inside them. The tractor factory produced T-34 tanks on the assembly line, and workers drove them directly into combat without paint or gun sights. Some tanks were destroyed before leaving the factory floor. Number 18. Snipers became legendary in Stalingrad. Soviet sniper Vasily Zaytsev is credited with 225 confirmed kills. His duel with German sniper school director Major Erwin Koenig was later depicted in the film Enemy at the Gates, though historians debate whether Koenig actually existed. Number 19. Whether Koenig was real or not, Zaytsev was. He trained 28 snipers during the battle. Together they killed over 3,000 German soldiers. Zaytsev was blinded by a landmine in January 1943, but had his sight restored by surgery in Moscow. He returned to combat and survived the war. Number 20. Lyudmila Pavlichenko, a Soviet sniper, had 309 confirmed kills before being transferred from Sevastopol to train snipers. Women made up roughly 2,000 of the Soviet snipers during World War II. In Stalingrad, female snipers, machine gunners and pilots fought alongside men in every phase of the battle. Number 21. The average age of Soviet soldiers in Stalingrad was 19 to 20 years old. Many had fewer than 10 days of training. They were handed a rifle often taken from a dead soldier, given minimal ammunition, and sent across the Volga into the burning city. Number 22. Soviet reinforcements crossing the Volga were told, "We have no land beyond the Volga." It meant there would be no retreat. The river was the last line. Surrendering it meant losing the war. Number 23. The Volga froze in November 1942. Ice formed thick enough to walk on, but not thick enough to support vehicles. Soviet soldiers hauled supplies across by hand, dragging sleds loaded with ammunition, food and medical supplies. German artillery targeted them on the ice. The frozen river became a killing field. Number 24. Rats infested Stalingrad, millions of them. They fed on corpses, contaminated food supplies, and spread disease. Soldiers reported rats as large as cats. Some Soviet units hunted them for food. The Germans did too. Number 25. Winter arrived in November. Temperatures dropped to -30 degrees Fahrenheit, -35 degrees Celsius. German soldiers were not equipped for winter warfare. Many still wore summer uniforms. Frostbite casualties exceeded combat casualties in some units. Soldiers burned furniture, books and bodies to stay warm. Number 26. The Soviets were better prepared for winter, but not by much. Warm clothing was in short supply. Soldiers wrapped their feet in newspaper for insulation. Many lost toes, fingers, ears and noses to frostbite. Amputations were performed without anesthesia. Number 27. The grain elevator was a massive concrete structure on the Volga's edge. 50 Soviet Marines defended it for 5 days against an entire German division. They fought floor by floor, room by room, until only 18 defenders remained. They surrendered only after running out of ammunition and water. German soldiers who entered the elevator described the scene as a slaughterhouse. Number 28. Soviet reinforcements were ferried across the Volga at night to avoid German air attacks. On the night of September 14 to 15, the 13th Guards Rifle Division crossed under fire. They took 30% casualties before reaching the city. They went directly into combat without rest. By morning, 1,200 of the 10,000 men who crossed were dead. Number 29. The fighting was so intense that soil samples taken from Stalingrad in the 1,990 seconds contained 1,200 pieces of shrapnel per square metre. The ground was metal. Number 30. German soldiers called Stalingrad Rattenkrieg, Rat War. There were no front lines. Every cellar, every sewer, every pile of rubble could hide the enemy. Soldiers slept in craters with grenades in their hands. Paranoia was constant. Number 31. The Mamayev Kurgan was a hill overlooking the city. It changed hands 8 times. By the end of the battle, the hill was so saturated with metal from shells, bullets and shrapnel that compasses didn't work. The soil was black from explosions. In spring, grass refused to grow for 2 years. Number 32. Soviet artillery fired from the east bank of the Volga, targeting German positions across the river. Accuracy was difficult, and many Soviet shells landed on their own troops. Soldiers in Stalingrad learned to recognize incoming fire by sound. Soviet shells whistled differently than German ones. Number 33. German supply lines stretched 2,000 miles from Germany to Stalingrad. Trains, trucks and horses carried ammunition, food and fuel. Soviet partisans attacked these supply lines constantly, destroying bridges, ambushing convoys and blowing up trains. By November, German supplies were critically low. Number 34. Hermann Göring, commander of the Luftwaffe, promised Hitler that his air force could supply the Sixth Army by air if it became encircled. He claimed the Luftwaffe could deliver 500 tons of supplies per day. It was a lie. The Luftwaffe never delivered more than 120 tons per day, and usually far less. Number 35. On the 19th of November 1942, the Soviets launched Operation Uranus, a massive counteroffensive aimed at encircling the German Sixth Army. Over 1 million Soviet troops, 13,000 artillery pieces and 1,400 tanks attacked the weak Romanian and Italian armies, protecting the German flanks. Number 36. The Romanian Third and Fourth Armies collapsed within 48 hours. Soviet tank columns poured through the gaps, racing to close the circle around Stalingrad. German commanders begged Paulus to retreat. He radioed Hitler for permission. Hitler refused. Number 37. On the 23rd of November 1942, Soviet pincers met at Kalach, 60 miles west of Stalingrad. The German Sixth Army was surrounded. 290,000 German and Axis soldiers were trapped in a pocket 30 miles wide and 25 miles deep. They called it Der Kessel, the cauldron. Number 38. Hitler ordered Paulus to hold Stalingrad at all costs. He promoted Paulus to field marshal, reminding him that no German field marshal had ever surrendered. The message was clear: die or win. Retreat was not an option. Number 39. Field Marshal Erich von Manstein launched Operation Winter Storm on December 12, 1942, a desperate attempt to break through to the encircled Sixth Army. His forces reached within 30 miles of the pocket before being stopped by Soviet counterattacks. Paulus was ordered to break out and link up with Manstein. He refused, citing Hitler's orders to hold Stalingrad. Number 40. The Luftwaffe's air supply effort was a catastrophe. Transport planes were shot down by Soviet fighters and anti-aircraft guns. Airfields were overrun. Pilots flew through blizzards and crash-landed in the snow. By January, the Luftwaffe was losing an average of 50 planes per day. Number 41. Inside the Kessel, rations were cut repeatedly. By December, German soldiers received 200 grams of bread per day, about 2 slices. By January, it was 50 grams. Horses were slaughtered and eaten, then dogs, then rats. Soldiers starved to death at their posts. Number 42. German field hospitals were overwhelmed. Over 20,000 wounded soldiers lay in unheated cellars without medical supplies, anesthesia or hope of evacuation. Frostbite, gangrene and dysentery killed thousands. Doctors amputated limbs with hacksaws. Morphine ran out in December. Soldiers screamed for days before dying. Number 43. Typhus, dysentery and lice-borne diseases spread through the encircled army. By January 1943, over 50,000 soldiers were too sick or weak to fight. Dead bodies were stacked outside bunkers like firewood because the ground was too frozen to dig graves. Number 44. Suicides increased. German soldiers shot themselves rather than face starvation or capture. Officers looked the other way. Some joined them. Letters home stopped mentioning victory and started saying goodbye. Number 45. The Soviets launched their final assault on the 10th of January 1943. Over 7,000 artillery pieces bombarded the pocket. The German perimeter shrank daily. Paulus moved his headquarters into the basement of the Univermag department store in central Stalingrad. Number 46. On the 26th of January 1943, Soviet forces split the German pocket in two. The northern group, trapped near the tractor factory, surrendered on January 31. The southern group, trapped around the Univermag, held out 2 more days. Number 47. On the 31st of January 1943, a Soviet lieutenant entered Paulus's basement headquarters and demanded his surrender. Paulus, now a field marshal for less than 48 hours, surrendered without resistance. He became the first German field marshal ever captured alive. Number 48. Hitler was furious. He had expected Paulus to commit suicide. Instead, Paulus lived, was taken to Moscow, and eventually testified against Nazi war crimes at Nuremberg. He remained in Soviet custody until 1953, then moved to East Germany, where he died in 1957. Number 49. The final German units in Stalingrad surrendered on the 2nd of February, 1943. Of the 290,000 soldiers encircled in November, only 91,000 survived to surrender. Of those, only 5,000 ever returned to Germany. The rest died in Soviet prisoner of war camps from starvation, disease and forced labor. Number 50. Soviet casualties were staggering. Estimates vary, but most historians agree that Soviet military deaths in Stalingrad numbered between 500,000 and 750,000. Another 500,000 were wounded. Total Soviet losses, military and civilian, exceeded 1.1 million. Number 51. German and Axis losses totaled approximately 850,000 killed, wounded or captured. The German Sixth Army ceased to exist. The Romanian Third and Fourth Armies were destroyed. Italian and Hungarian divisions were shattered. It was the worst German defeat of the war to that point. Number 52. Civilian casualties are difficult to calculate. At least 40,000 civilians died in the initial August bombing. Another 10,000 died during the battle. Thousands more were deported to labor camps or executed as partisans. By the battle's end, fewer than 10,000 civilians remained in the city, a population loss of 97%. Number 53. The city was obliterated. Over 90% of buildings were destroyed. The rubble was so extensive that clearing it took 20 years. Unexploded bombs, shells and bodies continued to be found in the 21st century. Number 54. Soviet propaganda turned Stalingrad into the ultimate symbol of resistance. The phrase, "There is no land for us beyond the Volga," became a national rallying cry. Monuments, films, books and songs immortalized the defenders. The city became sacred. Number 55. After the war, Stalingrad was renamed Volgograd in 1961 as part of de-Stalinization. Some veterans protested. They had fought for Stalingrad, not Volgograd. On 6 specific days each year, including February 2, the day of German surrender, the city officially reverts to the name Stalingrad. Number 56. The Mamayev-Kurgan Memorial Complex was completed in 1967. At its center stands "The Motherland Calls," a 279-foot statue of a woman holding a sword. At the time of its construction, it was the tallest statue in the world. The sword alone weighs 14 tons. Number 57. Over 35,000 names are engraved on the memorial walls at Mamayev-Kurgan. They represent identified Soviet soldiers killed in the battle. Thousands more remain unidentified. The eternal flame burns at the foot of the hill, guarded 24 hours a day. Number 58. German soldiers captured at Stalingrad were marched through the ruined city to prisoner of war camps. Soviet civilians lined the streets and threw stones, spat and screamed at them. Some prisoners were beaten to death. Soviet guards did not intervene. Number 59. The prisoners were sent to camps in Siberia and Central Asia. They worked in mines, forests and construction projects. Rations were minimal, medical care was non-existent. In the first winter of captivity, 45,000 of the 91,000 prisoners died. Number 60. One German prisoner, Kurt Reuber, was a military chaplain and artist. While trapped in the Kessel, he drew a charcoal sketch of the Madonna and Child on the back of a Soviet map. The image, called the Stalingrad Madonna, became a symbol of hope and suffering. Reuber died in Soviet captivity in 1944. The original drawing survives in a church in Berlin. Number 61. Letters from Stalingrad were censored by both German and Soviet authorities. German soldiers wrote of cold and hunger but were forbidden to mention defeat. Soviet soldiers wrote of bravery and victory but couldn't mention casualties. Both sides lied to their families. Number 62. After the German surrender, Soviet forces found warehouses full of supplies that had never been distributed. Crates of bread, ammunition and medical supplies sat unused while soldiers starved. The breakdown in German logistics was so complete that supplies existed but couldn't reach the men who needed them. Number 63. The Junkers Ju-52 transport planes that attempted to resupply the Sixth Army had to land at Pitomnik and Gumrak airfields inside the pocket. As Soviet forces advanced, these airfields came under artillery fire. On the 16th of January 1943, Pitomnik was overrun. On January 22, Gumrak fell. After that, all supply attempts were airdrops, and most supplies landed in Soviet-controlled territory. Number 64. The Luftwaffe lost 488 aircraft during the Stalingrad airlift. This included 266 Ju-52 transports, the backbone of German air transport. The losses crippled the Luftwaffe's ability to conduct future airborne operations or strategic resupply missions. Number 65. Hitler never visited Stalingrad. He never saw the ruins or the suffering. He commanded the battle from his headquarters in East Prussia, over 1,500 miles away. After the surrender, he refused to mention the Sixth Army by name in public speeches. Number 66. The Stalingrad defeat shattered the myth of German invincibility. For the first time, ordinary Germans began to question whether the war could be won. Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels acknowledged the defeat, but framed it as a heroic sacrifice. Germans stopped believing him. Number 67. After Stalingrad, Germany never launched another major offensive on the Eastern Front with the same confidence. Operation Citadel at Kursk in July 1943 was a cautious, limited attack. It failed. The strategic initiative passed permanently to the Soviet Union. Number 68. The Soviet victory at Stalingrad became the psychological turning point of the Eastern Front. Soldiers who survived it believed they could win the war. They were right. The Red Army pushed west for the next 2 years, eventually reaching Berlin. Number 69. Soviet industry outproduced Germany during the battle. In 1942, the Soviet Union produced 24,000 tanks and 25,000 aircraft, despite losing much of its industrial base to German occupation. Soviet factories worked 24-hour shifts. Workers, including women, children and the elderly, slept on factory floors. Number 70. The T-34 tank, produced in massive numbers, was superior to most German tanks at Stalingrad. It had sloped armour, a powerful 76mm gun, and wide tracks for mobility in snow. German Panzer IIIs and IVs struggled in close urban combat. The T-34 thrived. Number 71. The Soviet Katyusha rocket launcher, nicknamed Stalin's organ by Germans, was used extensively at Stalingrad. It fired 16 rockets in 7 to 10 seconds, saturating entire areas with explosives. The sound was terrifying. German soldiers reported that the psychological impact was worse than the physical damage. Number 72. Soviet women served in combat roles at Stalingrad in unprecedented numbers. Female anti-aircraft gunners shot down German planes. Female medics dragged wounded soldiers under fire. The 1077th Anti-Aircraft Regiment, composed entirely of women, fought at Stalingrad and shot down 38 German aircraft. Number 73. German soldiers called Soviet female soldiers Flintenweiber riflewomen and often refused to take them prisoner. Female Soviet soldiers captured by Germans were frequently tortured and executed. Soviet propaganda used these atrocities to fuel hatred and resistance. Number 74. The youngest soldier confirmed to have fought at Stalingrad was one 3-year-old Sergei Oleshkov. His family was killed by Germans. Soviet soldiers adopted him as a son of the regiment. He carried messages, helped the wounded, and once saved a wounded officer by digging him out of a collapsed bunker. He survived the war. Number 75. German Field Marshal Wolfram von Richthofen, commander of Luftflotte 4, wrote in his diary after visiting the pocket in January 1943, "I reported to the Führer that Stalingrad cannot be supplied by air, and the airlift is a failure. He did not want to hear it." Richthofen survived the war and died in 1945. Number 76. Soviet General Andrei Yeryomenko commanded the Stalingrad front, the southern half of the Soviet forces. He coordinated with Chuikov inside the city and orchestrated the encirclement. After the war, he was given little credit. Chuikov became the public hero. Yeryomenko remained bitter about the historical treatment. Number 77. The battle's aftermath left Stalingrad uninhabitable. Mines, unexploded shells, and contaminated water supplies made the city dangerous for years. Rebuilding began in 1943 but took 2 decades. Modern Volgograd looks nothing like the pre-war city. Number 78. German POWs captured at Stalingrad were used as forced labor to rebuild Soviet cities, including Stalingrad itself. They cleared rubble, built housing, and constructed factories. The irony was deliberate. Some Germans remained in the Soviet Union until 1956, 13 years after the battle ended. Number 79. The last German POW from Stalingrad, Andreas Hillgruber, returned to Germany in 1955. He was 33 years old when captured, 46 when released. He had spent 12 years in Soviet labor camps. He spoke publicly about his experiences only once, then refused all interviews. He died in 1989. Number 80. The Soviet Union awarded over 700,000 medals for the defense of Stalingrad. The "For the Defense of Stalingrad" medal was given to all military personnel and civilians who participated. It remains one of the most common Soviet military decorations. Number 81. Chuikov went on to command the 8th Guards Army in the drive to Berlin. His forces stormed the Reichstag in April 1945. He accepted the German surrender of Berlin. He later became chief of the Soviet ground forces and lived until 1982. He was buried at Mamayev Kurgan, overlooking the city he saved. Number 82. Many Stalingrad veterans refused to speak about the battle after the war. The trauma was overwhelming. PTSD was not recognized in the Soviet Union. Veterans who showed symptoms were often dismissed as weak or cowardly. Alcoholism and suicide rates among survivors were high. Number 83. German veterans of Stalingrad faced different challenges. They returned to a defeated nation and were often blamed for losing the war. Some formed veterans' associations and gathered annually to remember their fallen comrades. Many felt betrayed by Hitler's refusal to allow retreat. Number 84. The Wehrmacht lost 150 generals at Stalingrad, either killed or captured. This was an unprecedented loss of command experience. The German army never fully recovered. Junior officers were promoted rapidly, but they lacked the training and experience of their predecessors. Number 85. Romanian losses at Stalingrad were catastrophic. The Romanian Third and Fourth Armies lost over 150,000 men. Romania's alliance with Germany was never the same. By 1944, Romania switched sides and joined the Allies. Number 86. The Italian Eighth Army lost 84,000 men at Stalingrad. The disaster contributed to Mussolini's fall from power in 1943. Italian survivors of Stalingrad were treated as heroes, but also as symbols of military humiliation. Number 87. Hungarian forces at Stalingrad lost 80,000 men. The defeat weakened Hungary's commitment to the Axis. By 1944, Hungary attempted to negotiate a separate peace with the Allies. Germany responded by invading and occupying Hungary. Number 88. Soviet historians and Western historians disagree on the exact casualty figures for Stalingrad. Soviet records were incomplete, and wartime propaganda inflated or deflated numbers depending on political needs. Modern estimates using archival data suggest total casualties, both sides, military and civilian, exceeded 2 million. Number 89. Stalingrad became a propaganda tool for both sides. Germans used it to rally the nation to total war. Soviets used it to demonstrate the superiority of communism and the heroism of the Soviet people. Both narratives contained truth and lies. Number 90. The phrase "not one step back" became associated with the battle, but it predated Stalingrad by weeks. Order number 227 applied to the entire Eastern Front. Stalingrad simply made it famous and lethal. Historians estimate that over 13,000 Soviet soldiers were executed for retreat or cowardice during the battle. Number 91. Desertion was rampant in the early months. Soviet soldiers fled across the Volga, hid in ruins, or shot themselves to avoid combat. Blocking detachments caught some, executed others, and sent the rest back into battle. The policy was brutal and effective. Number 92. The Soviets used propaganda loudspeakers to broadcast messages to German soldiers in the pocket. The messages offered food, warmth, and survival if they surrendered. They also played German music and read letters from home. Many German soldiers reported the psychological warfare was more effective than bullets. Number 93. The battle's environmental destruction was severe. Oil fires burned for weeks. Chemical plants exploded, releasing toxic fumes. The Volga was polluted with fuel, blood, and bodies. Fish disappeared from the river for years. Vegetation died from chemical contamination. Number 94. Archaeological excavations in modern Volgograd continue to uncover remains of soldiers from both sides. In 2019, excavators found a mass grave containing 200 Soviet soldiers. In 2021, workers constructing a shopping mall discovered German helmets, weapons, and skeletal remains. The city is built on bones. Number 95. The psychological scars of Stalingrad extended beyond veterans. Children who survived the battle grew up with trauma. Families who lost sons, fathers, and brothers mourned for decades. Soviet society was permanently marked by the scale of loss. Victory came at a price that could never be fully calculated. Number 96. German generals blamed Hitler for the defeat. In post-war memoirs, they argued that Paulus should have been allowed to retreat, that the encirclement could have been avoided, that the entire campaign was strategically flawed. They were right. Hitler's insistence on holding Stalingrad doomed the Sixth Army. Number 97. Soviet films and novels about Stalingrad were heavily censored. Anything that portrayed Soviet soldiers as afraid, retreating, or questioning orders was banned. The official narrative allowed only heroism and sacrifice. The truth, terror, chaos, executions, and desperation remained hidden for decades. Number 98. After the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Russian archives were partially opened. Historians gained access to casualty reports, execution records, and NKVD documents. The reality of Stalingrad became clearer. The battle was even more brutal than previously known. Number 99. Veterans from both sides occasionally met after the war. In the 1,960 seconds and 70 seconds, former enemies gathered at Stalingrad for reconciliation ceremonies. Some embraced, others wept. A few refused to shake hands. The wounds were too deep. Number 100. The last survivor of Stalingrad, Soviet veteran Nikolai Syrozetdinov, died in 2020 at age 99. He had been 19 during the battle. He fought at Mamayev Kurgan, was wounded twice, and received 3 medals. In his final interview, he said, "We knew we were going to die. We just wanted to take as many of them with us as possible." Number 101. Stalingrad consumed 2 million lives across 200 days. The Germans lost an entire army and the myth of invincibility. The Soviets lost half a bow's million soldiers, but proved they could not be broken. The city was destroyed, but its name became eternal. The battle decided nothing on its own, but after Stalingrad, everyone knew how the war would end.